Today I'm speaking with Helen Greene. Helen, thank you so much for joining me today.
Oh, yeah. Thank you for having me on, Tim. I'm excited.
Yeah, I appreciate you doing this. And Helen is in Florida, and I wanted to give a little bio for Helen. I don't know too much about Helen, so we'll get to know her together. But Helen works for the Recovering from Religion organization. You're a virtual support group leader as well as an ambassador. And the reason that we're chatting, in addition to kind of diving into your story, is there is a fundraiser coming up shortly for Recovering from Religion, and we'll do a little bit more of a little plug for that shortly. But before we do, could you just tell us a little bit more about yourself and what can we know about you?
Oh, sure. Yeah. So, my name is Helen. I am a former Catholic and a former pagan. I've been an atheist for about 4 years, and I've been an atheist activist coming up on like a year. So, pandemic time was definitely the time for me to start doing more in the community and getting more involved and stuff like that, because before that, I was just kind of like, yeah, I'm an atheist, it's fine. But I think during the pandemic I wanted to do something more, because I've always been the type of person that likes to help people and stuff like that. And I found myself listening to a lot of stories of people that had left religion, or they were going through the transition period and stuff like that, and there was a lot of hurt and confusion and some trauma and all these different things that I was hearing, and I was just like what can I do? So I got involved with RFR. So that's where that kind of took off, and now I'm doing some other things as an activist and stuff like that. So it's kind of taken the past 2 years for me to really get this ball rolling and stuff like that. Um, but before that, yeah, I was grew up in like a very traditional French Catholic family. Like you were French, you were Catholic because your family was Catholic. It wasn't like converted to some form of Catholicism. It was just that we were Catholic because my mom was Catholic and her family was Catholic and they were Catholic before that, and on and on. So that's kind of where
Almost in your
our
genes.
yeah, it's in the genes. Exactly. Big French families. Like I'm one of six, and my mom is one of 14. And I had an great uncle that his first wife, he had 13 kids, and then his second wife, they had 8 kids, just big Catholic French families and stuff like that. And it was very much very traditional in the way that I was brought up. And it was funny because my dad is a believer, but he's not a practicer. So he believes in a God, but he was not involved in the church at all. He was just kind of like, you go to church because mom's making you go to church. She was like the moral teacher in the household. And my dad would stayed home on Sundays and gardened or watched TV or something. He wasn't going to church. He went to church for weddings and funerals, and that was it. So,
Mm-hmm.
and
Well, I
then
do.
go
Before I
ahead.
was going to say, I do want to make sure I mention here just at the beginning before we get too deep, and we'll go right back into your story. But just to give one more small point of context for our chat here today, one of the reasons that we wanted to connect was that Recovering from Religion, which is I'll talk more about what they do, but they're doing a fundraiser shortly, and it's on Saturday, February 19th. It's their second annual fundraiser on YouTube, and there'll be some links. So please, if you all have not heard of Recovering from Religion, or you have hopefully, but you want to just attend their fundraiser and see it again, it's Saturday, February 19th. I'll have the links right beneath my video. If it's past the date, go and check out what happened in the past. But please do also consider supporting them. They do a wonderful work, and I just want to give one more quick bio, so to speak, for the organization, and then we'll dive back into your story. Recovering from Religion is an international nonprofit organization that works to provide hope, healing, and support for people who have questions or doubts about their faith. They're not there to help people to deconvert. They're not there to encourage people to deconvert. They're just there to talk about doubts. And if people want to stay in their faith, they can. And if they want to talk about their questions, they can too. So they're there just to be a support. They help people who have left or in the process of leaving religion, or are dealing with problems arising out of theistic doubt or non-belief. And again, Recovering from Religion provides support groups, telephone and chat helplines, an online peer support community, and online meetings for people, so to speak, in their most urgent time of need. And they're headquartered in Kansas City, but you can reach them anywhere in the world. They have a whole list of numbers if you're depending on where you are in the world. And they also provide support groups, which I know you're involved with.
Mhm.
The support groups provide ongoing and personal support to individuals as they let go of their religious beliefs. That period is an ongoing process that can result in a range of emotions as well as the ripple effect of consequences, such as people shunning you or walking away from you or whatever, or starting to attack you for your lack of faith. And so recovering from religion is simply there to help people through their journey. So, number one, I just want to say, wow, and thank you for what you're doing there. That's awesome. I personally did call them myself twice when I first started my deconversion process. It really helped. I know you can call a lot more than that. You can
Oh
call
yeah.
once, you can call 10 times. They're there for ongoing support. They're there for just chats. I think I chatted with the first guy for an hour or two, and the next person I chatted with for at least an hour or two as well. And they're just, when you have no one else to talk to, they're there to really support you. So thank you for that. With that as the background, feel free to fill in anything else about recovering from religion that I don't know or that we should know regarding the fundraiser. We'll plug it again at the end. And then if you want to take us back to your story as well, but I want to make sure I gave a fundraiser plug there.
Yeah, thank you for that. I almost forgot. So thank you. I do want to piggyback off that a little bit. If you, because like you can call or chat in. If you don't feel comfortable talking on the phone, you can use the text chat, or if you feel like stuff's going to be lost in context, if you're doing text, you call in, and a trained sympathetic ear will be there. We keep in mind we are not professional therapists. We are just well trained in like listening to people and giving them resources and helping people just kind of guide them through like the questions and the issues that that they're having. If we do direct people to like the secular therapy project, if they do need professional therapy, that you feel that you need more of a need for that, that's but we are not professional therapists. We're just really kind people that just want to help and listen and help people deal with, like, if you have a fear of hell, or you're dealing with your crazy religious mom that wants you to go to church and you don't want to go, and if you're dealing with how do I tell, how do I work in a place where everybody's religious and I'm not, how do I navigate that? Like everybody has different things that come up, sexual issues, queer issues, all these different things, like they come up, and sometimes you just don't want to, like, because we don't give advice. We're going to help you try to find the answers in yourself and give you resource to kind of help you on your way, and just kind of guide you, because we don't want to tell a person what to do, because that might not be the tool that they need, but we want to help them find the tools that they need, so that's kind of what we do. We also, yeah, we do like I do the sending, I do a virtual support group. Mine's kind of general, like it's not related to any city or country. It's just like, hey, if you want to come to the support group, come to the support group. And those you can find through Meetup. I mean, just put in recovering from religion. You can go by your city. Like if you live in Seattle or Tampa or whatever, you can find people in your area and when that group is. But you can join any group. Like if you're like, you know what, I'm having a really bad day, I just want to talk to somebody, and in a group setting, you can find a group that, because we have them ongoing all month, that's going to work for you. So and we switched over to online because COVID. So all of our groups are online, and hopefully once everything kind of opens back up, we'll be able to do more stuff in the community. But right now it's working online, so that's been really great. We also do a fall excursion every year. So every September. The last one was in the mountains of North Carolina. I don't know where the one in September is going to be yet, because it has been announced. And that's basically an excursion of like workshops and professionals, people that are active in the atheist community, that come together. And basically we have like a long RFR weekend with like volunteers and like our board members and clients and atheist activists all kind of come together to kind of support and hang out together and stuff like that. So that's another thing that the donations help pay for. We also have an online community on Slack. So like if you call or chat in with an agent and they feel that you could really benefit from the online community, because I'm sure you know this, that the more you're talking to people that have come from the same place you did, like my experience is going to be different coming from like a Catholic pagan background than someone that comes from like an evangelical Jehovah's Witness Muslim background. But if you can go on the Slack, you can connect with people from that background and have conversations and talk about similar experiences you had and kind of support each other,
Yeah.
and so that's what, we have that there as well. So anytime we get donations, 100% of those donations go to these programs at RFR. They go to our podcasts, they go to our blogs, they go to any media spots we do, anything we do comes through those donations, and it's
And
all
is it,
volunteer run. It's all volunteer run.
and it just to kind of put the cart before the horse, so to speak, but it's really a truism that when many people go through these things, I would just guess it's the vast majority of people who go through a deconstruction / deconversion process, that if you are even tinkering with the idea of agnosticism or atheism and you've never been there before, and your whole support system around you for the last whatever couple of decades has been very theistic, very much into some version, especially from my background, of Christianity, but whatever your religion was, that time period can really, really shake you up, especially when you have a lot to lose, meaning your spouse might suddenly completely lose respect for you. Your parents might even write you off. We know especially with the Jehovah's Witnesses backgrounds, they really take shunning to a whole new level, kind of similar to the Amish. And you're out, you're fully out. And so there's a lot to lose. And when people realize that they try to stay, maybe they try to convince themselves that there's a way to kind of keep their feet planted in both worlds of skepticism, but also faith. And some people, just despite that background, they just can't stay anymore because they're just like, I just don't think this is reality anymore. I can't do it. And
Yep.
especially when you look at certain political things or a lack of certain cultural stances from churches where they take certain positions, and you just start to say, these aren't my people anymore. I don't stand for what they stand for. This isn't me anymore. This isn't reflective of my worldview or my values. And eventually you get to a point where you really, really, really realize your life is about to shift dramatically and you need help. And could you maybe talk about some of the things, the emotions that people would kind of face as they begin to make the decision to say, I'm no longer going to just say these things in my mind. I'm going to actually make life choices and verbalize it. Like what's going to happen to a lot of people as they start to transition into saying, I'm just not a believer anymore?
I think that like what I've discovered through my own experience and knowing like a lot of people in the atheist community, not just on RFR, but just knowing atheists that have come from religion, there's always that period where that paradigm shift happens, where you are like, you feel like you've had like, you've been walking around with like a blindfold on, and you've been going through, this, it's kind of hindering, but you can function, you're going through the day and all this type of stuff, and then the blindfold comes off and you're like, what is going on? Like, and you see everything. It's like, it's always the cave analogy with Plato, like you see the shadows, then you come outside, and then then you see the wider reality of the world, and I think that and also too, like when you start that skepticism process, it's not only religion that you're starting to question, it's like, what else have I been wrong about? If you're being honest with yourself, if you're like, did I marry my spouse for the right reasons? Did I maybe I've been wrong about like queer people, maybe I've been wrong about people of different races, maybe I've been wrong about different religions, like it starts that process of that skepticism. And I think there's a lot of anxiety that gets brought up with that, because and a lot of frustration and anger, like I didn't really go through an angry atheist stage, but I know a lot of people that are going through it or still or have come on the other side of it, where they feel like they've been lied to their whole lives, and and they see all the damage that religion does to people, and it did to themselves, especially if you have like religious trauma syndrome, where there's a lot of really reactive things that happen, through religion and the way that you were brought up, and you're in this anger space, that doesn't, you don't know what to do with, because it's an institution. It's not like I can, go and yell at, the priest for, teaching a bunch of bull crap to me, because that is their belief system. I can yell at them, but it's not going to do me any good, because they're just going to go, okay, well, she's crazy. you know so
But I mean, you're bringing up a really good point though. There's a lot of anger there, and people really need to find a way to healthily process that. And I think you're bringing up too the great point of the trauma, like whether you're talking about something that's just kind of general, like I just generally feel like I'm always wicked and I'm always worthy of judgment and I'm worthless, and God is condemning me, even though he might technically say I love you, or I've made a provision for your salvation, but still he's very angry at the sin issue. You always feel like you're failing him in some way, and that he's watching you, kind of like that, so divine North Korea. You're always in danger of being in trouble, or the
right.
specifics like modesty culture, purity culture, virginity culture, shame culture, and on it goes. And yeah, a lot of people they're healing both from specific trauma and also, like you said, just this question of like, what if this isn't true, then what else isn't true, and how do I find truth now? And it's very, very shaky. And I think it makes you, for the first, especially realize when you're doing it for the first time in your older years, older meaning whatever to certain people, but like if you feel like you're no longer in your youngest best years per se,
hmm
you're like, wow, I've wasted a lot of my life. And now you might be thinking, this is my only life. I don't probably get a second life or an afterlife, perhaps. And you're like, this really stinks. I lost a lot of good time for mythology. And it hurts. It hurts people a lot to realize it. And it's not like you can't still make the best of what time you've got left, but it really irritates you. Like, I wish I had been free. I was in a mental prison. I was in a psychological prison because of mythology. And that kind of stinks. It kind of stinks that I could have had a better life, and hopefully, in our minds, a better life without all these shackles. And also, even when you're gone, when you're free of it, it's like the tree roots or the tentacles. Like, it, even once you know that it's not reality, you still find it coming, regurgitating, sort of like
hmm
coming back to bite you a little bit. And it takes a while to get over it and to really feel like you're grounded. And I mean, you hitting the reset button is one thing, but there's a lot of work to do even after you escape.
Yeah, I think so. Like, especially like, as living in the United States where religion's everywhere. Like, I have a church that's like literally I can walk to it,
Mm,
in my neighborhood, and then you go on the main street, there's another church and another church, and it's there, it's everywhere. And you have people say like, have a blessed day, and you have, like Mormons or Jehovah's Witnesses showing up at your door. Like, you can't escape it, like you can try, you can become like a hermit and not listen to any religious context. But if you're going to go out in the world, you're going to hear it, and we're not even as extreme as like, some like Muslim countries where it is the state that it mandates it, versus us where you kind of have the freedom to choose it, which I use that term loosely because no one chooses a belief, you're indoctrinated into it. But, you know, um, that's the reality that we have to live with, and that's just going to keep, if you don't process that stuff, it's just going to keep triggering you, like you're going to snap at the lady at the grocery counter for saying have a blessed day, because you're just going to be reactive, and she just thinks she's being nice, and doesn't know why you're getting mad. So
exactly.
it's like those little things like that. Like, yeah, do I get annoyed, when people say like, have a blessed day? Yes, but my usual response is live long and prosper, and I move on. Because,
That's right. Well,
like
what
it
can I
doesn't
ask?
hurt anything.
Yeah, exactly. Or when someone says God bless you after you sneeze. What can I
Yeah.
ask? Just going back to your story a little bit, where your background is a little bit different than mine, although I'm
Mhm.
familiar with Catholicism to a moderate extent. But would you say that you were raised to believe that you were a sinner, but that God had made a way of salvation through Jesus? Is that
Yeah. Yeah,
okay?
it's the basic gist. It's just that we like, but we believe in the I forget the actual word for it, but
Like the
like
sacraments?
the sacraments, like, the bread and wine actually becomes like the body and blood of Jesus. And it's like called transfiguration or something like that. I can't remember the exact name, but, and a lot of it is through the worship of the church more, like being part of the institution. But it's the same thing. Like, Jesus died for your sins because you were born a sinner, because your parents had sex, and because Adam and Eve had sex, that was like the original sin. And then, like, because everybody has sex, you were a part of that original sin, and it's from birth. Like, you start with baptism. Like, you don't get to like, evangelical Christians at least, like, don't for the most part, I don't think they baptize like babies. Like, it's something you have to like even though, like, because, like, yes, your parents are raising you to be evangelicals, but at the same time you can choose again, quote unquote, to be a part of the church. We don't get that choice. We are baptized, like, at like 4 months old, because I baptized my own kids when I was still in the church,
Okay.
and to
Well,
raise, and then
there are some that do it. I will admit,
yeah,
just to
yeah,
clarify that. The group I grew up with, and that a lot of people that were in my circles, they would have shuddered to think about baptizing babies, because the idea to them is baptism is part of a public declaration of your faith,
right,
which you can't do obviously as a baby. But I would say a lot of Presbyterians and Episcopalians, who are definitely not Catholics, they wouldn't bow their knee to Rome at all, but they would definitely baptize babies. They would kind of see it as a new version of circumcision, like you would circumcise a baby boy into the covenant, the old covenant. You would
right.
baptize new babies into the new covenant. So it's kind of like there's parallels there, but yeah, it's a lot of Christians still would not. They would shudder at the
Like,
idea of,
shudder, like, what are you doing? Right.
yeah, like
Yeah.
what?
And
Yeah, why would you baptize a baby? They can't profess their faith yet.
yeah, and that's the thing. And that, but that's the whole thing with like a different forms of indoctrination. Like, you're not getting baptized, but Catholic Church loves a ritual. And it is very romantic, like, and I'm not like sexual, but the feelings that you get, because there's a lot of pomp and circumstance. There's a lot of, like, I've been in some gorgeous churches, and I've been a part of services where I had, really good feelings come out of it. And, like, and some of it did help me grow to become like a better person. Like, I'm not going to sit there and say that nothing good came out of it. I did learn some really good important lessons, and those were lessons that the church taught me. But those are just good morality lessons that everybody else learns, pretty much. But I did learn it at church. And but it starts with the baptism, and then when you're in second grade, so that's about 8-9 years old, you do your first communion. So that's another ritual, and you get a party too, which is great, because, like, it's mass, do a thing, do a ritual, then you get a party, and everybody likes a party.
Is that the confirmation one? The
That's
confirmation.
15 when you're
Okay.
15. When you're 8, you do your first communion, so that's when you first receive the body of Christ. And then
Okay.
you're still being raised by your family, and they're raising you to be a Catholic. And then, so you do that for a number of years. And then when you're about 15, you go through CCD, which is like a Catholic education program. And then you make your confirmation, where you confirm that you're going to be a Catholic for the rest of your life on your own. So, and
Gotcha.
that's another ritual in a mass, and then you get a party and gifts. So,
Nice.
so it always follows the same kind of pattern and stuff like that. And like, I went to Catholic school up to 7th grade. But because of my ADHD, they weren't giving me the resources that I need. So my parents put me in public school, which was probably the start of the deconversion process, because this was like the first, especially when I got into high school, I started meeting people from different faiths, like, or like atheists. I didn't leave the church, but it was that first process of like questioning, like, maybe the religion I grew up with doesn't have all the answers. And what's weird is that, like, my parents aren't fundamental about religion. They, like I said, they're very traditional about religion. Like, you have to believe in something, but,
So
like,
they're
they
still
never.
believers to this day?
Yes, yeah.
Mm.
They're still very Catholic, which is like my dad is more like, I believe in God a little bit more, that he's getting that, I'm gonna die soon kind of feeling. So I gotta check in with the big guy. And like, my mom has just been a lifelong Catholic, so that's the way it is.
Would you
Um,
call her devout?
uh, it's hard to say because yeah, because like she was when she was younger, like she was like, we are going to mass on Sunday, and we are and you're going to go to Bible study, and you're going to do this, like when I was growing up, like it was very much a part of like my life, and but as she got older, um she like stopped going to church every Sunday, and she didn't even like watch it on TV. Like if she was sick or something, or we couldn't go, like if we were like snowed in, she would watch mass on television. She wouldn't make me do it, but she would,
Mm.
and then but as she got older, she's I think she still believes in the church and in the whole, like, the way that she was brought up and the rituals and things like that, but her her mind has kind of focused more, especially since they got older and there was more health problems and there was a little bit more chaos in their lives as they've gotten older. I think
Mm.
she's kind of pushed that a little bit to the side to focus more on like her family, my dad, that sort of thing like that. I think her devotion has shifted as she's gotten older, which I think is great, honestly. Like I feel like that's where your focus should be, on your family and the people that you love and care about, than on like some institution. But
Well,
she's still there a little bit.
do you have some family that you would call devout to the point where they would very actively do the rosary and they'd actively go to confession and things like that and take the communion or whatever you call it, the Eucharist on a regular basis?
Yeah,
Do you
that's
have any family?
yeah. Two of my brothers are still very devout.
Mm.
Um, and they like my brother considered being a monk at one point.
Wow.
He is in,
Yeah.
um, but he decided to get married and adopt a kid instead of becoming a monk. He
Mm.
shifted his focus and stuff. And my other
Can-
brother, he goes to church every Sunday, and he's raised his kids to be Catholic. And like I'm not sure on my niece and nephew's belief system in that, like because we're not particularly close, but I know my brother was like, you are Catholic, you're going to be Catholic.
Yeah.
So,
Can I ask, I assume that they don't appreciate what you're doing. Like, what's the response been as you became more vocal?
well, my parents don't like, and this is kind of a cheat because my parents live in New Hampshire and I'm in Florida, and they are not active on the internet. So they know I'm a non-believer, but they don't know that I'm an atheist activist. My
Okay.
family knows because I'm always posting stuff on my social media. So if you're a part of my family and on my social media, you know what's going on. But I don't think they've had conversations with my family about it, or if they have, they don't care. Because my parents have kind of taken the attitude now that, and this is kind of the attitude in my family, because the other part of my family aren't believers. They're either agnostic about it or they're atheistic about it. Like,
Mm.
or like religion is, or they might think that there's a God, but religion doesn't play a role in their lives, So that it's kind of like we don't talk really about theology. We don't talk about belief. We get together and we're usually making fun of each other and drinking and having that camaraderie we have as a family. Um, I feel one of my brothers has done a little bit of pushback, just because he doesn't understand like why I'm an atheist, you know, but he's not really interested in engaging on why,
Mm.
because I think there's a little bit of fear there, because if I start engaging with him and explaining what I went through and how I went through this deconversion process and what I learned, that he's going to have to start shifting his perspective a little bit, and I
Yeah.
think that's because he was, when I became pagan, after I left the church, he was the first one to respond to that. And he didn't like it. And then now that I've completely left any sort of spiritual, supernatural belief behind, I think even now he's like, I don't know what to do with this. What do I do with this?
You're an
And I
anomaly.
think it's hard. Yeah, I know. I'm black sheep. So
Well, it really is. Just to dwell on this for a minute, it's interesting. Like when I was in it, and my background is just I was a Christian from a very young age. From a very very young time, I was dedicated pretty much in my mind to being a missionary, and eventually I wanted to be a pastor as well. I went to school to be a pastor and a missionary, and I went to a missions institute where it specifically focuses on Bible translation and tribal evangelism, and like in like a jungle environment where people that have no Bible at all need the Bible first to be translated into their language
Mhm.
and then to have the gospel preached to them. But when you're in it and that's your whole world and you
Mhm.
know that you know that you know that you have the truth, anything else just sounds like a waste of time. It sounds like
Mhm.
side issue, a distraction. You're like, let's get back to the big issue. The big issue is eternity. This life is a blink of the eye. Eternity's coming, and you don't know when your time is up. And when God says your time is up, it says it's appointed once for man to die, and immediately after that, the judgment. You will be judged by God, and you have to be ready to give an answer. And if your answer is that you're I was a pretty good person, it's not going to get you in. You have to have a substitute. You have to have Christ's blood covering you as the person who took your punishment for you, and his death and resurrection obviously provides the way of salvation. And when you know in your mind that that's what's reality, and you just want to save the world, you just want to tell people, "Hey, I was lost, but now I'm found. You're lost. You need to know you can be found too. You can have a relationship with God, and God isn't just trying to get you fire insurance to get you out of hell. He wants to actually transform your mind and your heart and your life right now and give you kind of a taste of the kingdom of God that's coming, but you can live the kingdom of God now, even before it hits in the fullest sense.
Mhm.
And when that's your all in all, that's your worldview, that's your perspective. It's just everything. It's like the in the Matrix where you can see the code into you. The code is Christ. The code is the gospel. The code is the kingdom of God. The code is the word of God. You can't see when someone steps out of it. It's so weird. You don't know where to put them. And it's like when someone says like, all right, it's column A, column B, column C, and all of a sudden someone and that's like your whole life is you're one of these three columns, and all of a sudden someone says there's actually a fourth column. You're just like, I don't know what to do with this.
Right.
And it really shakes people up, and especially to I think it really shakes people up when they realize that you're not just saying I'm questioning. I have some deconstruction maybe going on. I'm saying some things don't add up, but maybe they will if I do more
Yeah.
research. You're not saying I'm on the fence anymore. You're saying I'm actually out, and you're making the claim. I don't think you all have the truth. I think you're in a lie, and actually you're in a cult, and not just like what some Christians would call other groups a cult. Like any version of you all, any version of
Yeah.
Christianity, you're stuck in a cult. And for you to say that to them it's not just like to them it's offensive, obviously, but it's just weird. They don't know how to think through it. Like, what do you mean we don't have the truth? We are the bastion of truth. And it when I was in it, of course, I don't remember too many atheists, if any at all, coming through my path. But I think if I had met someone, it definitely would have shaken me up. Like, how can you be so happy? You're just a loving father who loves your kids. You're, faithful spouse to your faithful mate to your spouse. You're, honest and respectful and loving and caring, and you're not worshiping Satan. You're not trying to do bad things. You're not stealing stuff. They don't know how to put all this stuff together. And it's cool though, because if people have not had that experience before, it might be, even if they've never studied like comparative mythology and all that kind of stuff, you are the first glimpse, so to speak, of a life without a God. And it really
Yeah.
is, it's like you, in a sense, kind of like Christians would say, I'm born again, I'm Christian. You're kind of say, actually, no, I'm actually born again for real because I've escaped this mythological worldview. And you're kind of effectively testifying to people there is another life, and it's so much better. It's so much more wonderful when you escape mythology.
Yeah, and I think also too, like, because I remember like when I was in high school, like I was coming up against because I kind of embraced at that time that I was bisexual,
Mm.
and I also embraced that there was different ideas, but the social aspect of religion was still very much a part of my life because a lot of my friends were religious. My family was, it was still a big part of my life, but I was coming up against these walls a little bit, like how can I be bi? How can I, but the thing is though, I was just, I did like, I did a lot of stuff in secret. I was never, like I'm still not out to my family because it's like my parents, because I'm like, they just accepted like gay people exist. Like, do I want to explain like how I live my lifestyle to them? No. But that's just my choice. um
Can I ask, is
but
the Catholic Church pretty strong against alternative lifestyles, so to speak?
yes, yeah, they're so, like, the Pope just came out that he doesn't agree with shunning your family member for being gay, and I think that's like, he just said that like last week. And I think that's good. Like, we are progressing a little bit. He doesn't believe that you should. He did say you should accept your gay child for being gay, or queer or whatever. So great, I think that's great. But the thing is, it's still a sin in the church to have sex with the same sex partner. So you can accept that your child is gay, but okay, you did that part. But when they bring a partner home that they're attracted to and is not your, and they're not following the recipe, they're gonna, they're gonna have their partner is going to be, a same-sex partner. What are you going to do? Are you going to accept it? Or are you still that indoctrination of, they're committing sin, what if they go to hell, blah blah blah? Is that voice going to start piping up? Because the thing is, though, is that yes, a lot of Catholics take, a lot of the lessons and teachings and rules from Rome and what the Pope is saying. But if you, like, I was lucky, my parents weren't very fundamentalist about, the church. I feel that, like, my parents always put family first over religion, which is great. But I still didn't feel comfortable, just because at the time my dad was a little bit of a homophobe, so I didn't feel 100% comfortable coming out. But there's still fundamentalist Catholics that are hardcore. And are you going to go to your hardcore Catholic parents and say, hey, you know what? I might be trans. I might be gay. I might be bi. I might be gender, whatever it is. Like, no, you're not going to, unless they have expressively said it is okay and you have seen them accept queer people around them in their lives. They don't make homophobic slurs. They don't, like, unless you actually have an example of them being open-minded and caring, even within their faith, you're not going to feel comfortable coming out. You're good. It's going to feel scary and weird, and you're going to get that judgment. And I totally sympathize with that, because I kind of went through that too, and it's one of those things about, like, when you're going through this process, is like, and like, some people like walk down the street and they've been kind of questioning things, and then they go, you know what, like, this is all bullshit. I think I'm an atheist. And they just, like, others like me, took a long time. I questioned things, but it didn't, I questioned religious institutions, but I didn't question my magical thinking. I didn't, like, I thought there must be something, I thought that there might, that held everything together, like, that created the universe, or even it was done through natural process, like, a higher intelligence, like, kickstarted, the Big Bang and evolution, all those different things,
Right.
like, I could get behind that, like, nothing was too much, that was the harder thing to let go of, was the magical thinking, and thinking
Mm.
that things were connected when they weren't. And then I went to college and studied psychology, and then understood and learned the different way our brains work, and how we mistake things, and we always look for patterns because that's the way our brains evolved, and all this stuff. And I was like, oh. And that's when it started to click. And then I had to, like, work through that process. And then, so, like, my deconversion wasn't as traumatizing as it could have been, just because I had, one, a very good support system. I had people around me that said it was okay to question, and they would still love me, and I wasn't going to get shunned. And two,
That's awesome.
I was more forgiving on myself, that I would say, like, you know what, I go, you didn't have a choice, like, I had to tell myself that mom and dad loved you, still love you, and doing what they thought was best. They didn't do this to you to lie to you, to be cruel. They didn't lie to you, because, they were trying to, like, pull the wool over your eyes or whatever. They have their beliefs, and they wanted to raise you in those beliefs, because that they thought that was going to make you a good person.
Can
and
I
they're
ask?
trying to save, and also that fear of like burning in hell, they're trying to save my soul. And I understand where people get mad and say like they get mad at their families, and I'm like, but they were indoctrinated too, and they haven't gone through the process, and they're still there, and you have
Yeah.
to be patient with that. And you might not deconvert them, they might never question, but like, is that the hill you want to die on? Like, do you want to do the work? Because it's going to be really hard, and they might not want to come over to your side. And like, do you want every time you go visit your parents at Thanksgiving and get into theological debates instead of just like eating and enjoying each other's company? Okay, you can. I
Yeah.
don't recommend it.
Just curious, in terms of when you were going through that process, two questions. Number one, did you have any fears that you might actually be kind of like the residual fear of, what if I'm completely wrong on this? What
Mhm.
if I'm just self-deluded? And what if I'm actually kind of sealing my fate that I'm about to go to either purgatory or hell? And did you ever fear in that mix of thoughts about all that, whether or not there might be, you know, demons and evil spirits that are guiding you to pick the falsehood and ignore the truth? And was that kind of game played on you at all, where like you can't, the proverb says, don't trust your own understanding, trust in the Lord. um let him guide your thoughts as opposed to you. And this constant backdrop of saying, don't, whatever you think is truth, if you're coming to that conclusion in your own understanding, you need to question that, be skeptical of yourself. And what you really need to do is put your whole, if you're, so to speak, a gambler, put all your chips on Yahweh's wisdom as opposed to your wisdom, on the Lord's wisdom and his understanding, his explanation. Did you fear that maybe you were, as the Bible talks about, you were having a cold heart and he was rewarding it with hardness of heart? And how did you deal with the fear of all that jumble?
It's weird because mine was kind of a mixed bag, because my dad was also very science oriented, and I had a really good science education and skeptical education growing up.
That's great.
Because Catholics separate theology from science. Like, you had a science class where we learned about the solar system and the Big Bang. And you learned evolution. And then in the other class you had theology, which was more of because the Catholics have their own science research and all this type of stuff. So they consider theology and science two separate things. So I already had a little bit of skepticism and understanding the world. It's just that usually the Catholic Church's stance is that God started everything,
So they
and
wouldn't
it's
have preached a young earth creationism of
no, they
it's
don't. No, they
okay.
do not believe in a young earth.
That's good.
They don't believe in a flat earth. There's a lot of newfangled bullshit that's been coming out that the church is like, no, that's not how it works. Like,
Do they
they
think
don't
Adam and
deny
Eve were real?
I think that they do, but not in the theology story. Like, it was just one man, one woman. Like, they do understand how we evolved. Like, we did evolve from apes, ape primates and all this type of stuff. Like, they do acknowledge that. But again, is the theology. The mythology informs your morals.
Yeah.
So that's basically how it works. They can't prove there was a literal Adam and Eve that started everything in the world, because one, gross, and two, it's impossible. That thing does not add up with the reality we live in and what we know, especially with how we understand how evolution works. As it just does not work, and the church
And the age of
acknowledges that.
and the age
Yeah,
of the
the age
earth
of
as
the
well.
universe, they acknowledge that it's billions and millions of years old, or this billions of years old.
Can I ask,
We've only.
when you realize evangelicals go down the other route a lot, not always, but there's certainly evangelical Christians, Protestant Christians who would go with an old earth, so to speak, and they'd acknowledge some version of evolution. But when you realized that there were Protestants who would absolutely die and fight on that hill of saying the earth is 6 to 10,000 years old max, there's no way, no how it's been any different, and there's no way we evolved from the primates. What was your reaction when you first heard that?
it was really funny because like the first time I heard that, I was still in high school, and my parents were like, you should hang out with people that have different beliefs than you. And I would go to like youth groups and stuff like that, you know, and a lot of them had that young earth model. And I was like, and like, I'm like 16 years old. So I did like, I didn't do a lot of pushback on it because I was still in that I want to be liked because I was a teenager, and you know, I'm not a, even now I'm not a very big, like, you know, you're full of bullshit person. Like I'm just not. But I came home and I told my dad, and he was like, what? And I go, they think the earth is only like 6,000 years old. And my dad was like, where did they get that? I'm like, the Bible. And my dad goes, the Bible's not a science book. And I go, I know. And that was my dad's reaction. Like my dad was like, that's crazy. And even now, like, but at the time I thought it was just this weird subset of like, you know, youthful, like Protestant kids that I kind of hung out with, you know, at the time. And then like, as I got older, I left the church. I was pagan for a while, and pagans are very science friendly and believe in science and what it tells us. So there was nothing about like, you know, a young earth creationist and all that bullshit there. And then, but when I really started following was when I started deconverting, when I really started looking at science, and I was hearing debates about young earth, and I didn't realize how much of the population believes this. And I even said to someone I was having a debate with, I said, so we have over here, we have all this science, all this proof. You can go study it. If you have a theory, you can do the work to prove your theory. And I go, you can do the thing, you know. So we have all this over here, you know, people that study like, you know, geology and astronomy and cosmology and like all the science, this big pile of science. And over here you have one book.
Yeah, it's amazing to think about.
And I asked which one, and they go, my book is right. And it blew my mind. Actually they said my book is right, all of them are wrong, even though I haven't studied any of it. I don't understand any of it, but it's wrong. And
what's amazing is that a bunch of other religions would say the exact same thing, just about a different set of texts. It's mind-boggling. That brings up too the whole idea of like the cultural thing you mentioned. You started with, you know, like this is a cultural thing. This was your family. You were cultural family Catholics, and like it never, for so many people, it never seems to hit them. Like maybe I am my religion because simply where I was born, and if I just happened to, by the way the cards fell, been born in Saudi Arabia, you know, or if I'd been born in some other country, if I'd been born in Japan or China, chances are good I'd have a different religion. And I would think that that one was also reflective of the closest reflection of reality too, just by virtue of being born there. And I would have special texts, and I would think that they're the best thing going. It's amazing that it never seems to come across to so many of us like that. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was funny because like I started studying theology when I became like a pagan, because like you get a pagan with mythology, they're all in, you know. It's just that it became more like an ethereal kind of belief, you know. It wasn't like, you know, a hardcore thing like there's one God and he did all this shit, you know. It is like more ethereal. It's kind of like a pick and choose kind of thing, you know, like, oh, I really like Zeus, I want to take something for Zeus. Oh, I really like, you know, Freya, I'm going to take something for Freya, you know. I really like Thoth, I'm going to take something. Like it's very that, you know. Or there's also like pagans that don't believe in any gods, they just think it's representatives of like human psychology, which is more my kind of idea of it. But the thing is that once I started studying the theology and all these different faiths and where faiths evolved from, you know, and different like they're even doing it now. Like there's apes that are entering the stone age, and there's natural phenomenon that will happen. Like Jane Goodall observed this too, and they're doing more research on it, that apes, when something like a forest fire happens, like lightning hits and there's a fire, and they will bring stones to like a particular tree that was hit, and it seems to be like after like a disaster in their perception happens, and they think it's like that's the first steps of like belief. Like if this bad thing happened, if I do a ritual, maybe the bad thing won't happen, you know, because they don't understand how lightning works and all that, and they
Yeah.
think that might have been the start of how we developed religious practices, you
Like a
know.
proto-animism.
Yeah, exactly. And I was like, huh. I'm like, I'm like, there has to be a lot more research on it, but it's an idea that's very fascinating because we are, and I think people forget that even though we have all this technology, we still have the same brain we had like thousands of years ago, you know, like we just have more science and more technology, and we have the ability to think and critically think about these things, but we had the ability to critically think about things where our answers is like way back. That's how like pyramids got built and shit, you know.
Yeah.
So I'm like,
And probably a
we
lot
try to
further than that.
pretend that we're these highly evolved species, and like I would never do the things that my ancestors did, and blah blah blah. I'm like, dude, you think a sky god came down, but he's himself, went through human life, sacrificed himself, which was like 3 days of bad, and then that's gonna save everybody from their sins. Like that is your thinking process. And I go, and you don't think that's any weirder than like our ancestors killing a goat because they wanted rain. Like, you
Yeah.
know, like
And
there's
we know too,
two
they
different
were
things.
very connected to both
Yeah.
the bigger picture, like, you know, astrotheology, the stars,
Yeah.
the zodiac. That was a big deal even way back in the Sumerian times. I don't know exactly when they first, you know, realized the whole precession of the equinox, but they at least saw that there was, you know, the zodiac with these symbols up in space.
Yeah.
And they also noticed the weird things like eclipses. They noticed comets. They noticed that there were cycles of the earth with flooding and the moon. You know, they picked these things up, and they
Yeah.
were very connected to the planet. And yeah, you can definitely see woven within the mythology, even within the Bible, how so much of this is related to things like your crops. And it's interesting to see how it evolved from, if we do these rituals, our crops will be saved, will be safe from the flood and blah blah blah, to, you know, like a very communal
Yep.
salvation, to a very personal salvation with the kind of the mystery cult stuff, where it's like you're not talking anymore about, will my crops survive if I do this ritual? You're saying, will I be able to go to a good place in the afterlife personally if I do these rituals, if I break the bread, drink the wine, if I go through some kind of baptism, you know, like Mithraism and all that. If I go through these rituals, will I be able to kind of inherit and partake of the death and resurrection of my mystery cult
Mhm.
hero that went through it first? And I can kind of, you know, follow their footsteps, just like, you know, they're the leader of the group, but we kind of become the first fruits. We become the people that inherit this wonderful, you know, path that they trod for us. And it's you can clearly see how it started and how it evolved. Whether, you know, we don't know exactly when the first people did it, but from the drawings on the walls, the paintings in the Egyptian, inside the, you know, temples, inside the temple at Karnak and all that, you can see how they were depicting what they thought might be happening with these gods. And it it staggers me and saddens me that we can't step back from our, this is my holy book and I believe what I believe, and if you don't believe, you're going to go to hell. Like, we can't step back from it for a second and say, maybe all we've been talking about this whole time, you know, not you and me, but just the whole time we've been talking about religion, is simply some people who were doing the best that they could, maybe at the time. You know, we would kind of attack their misogyny and patriarchy and the, you know, allowing for slavery and genocide and all that. But, you know, to them, they were doing what they thought at the time was the best. And so they create some kind of story, and to define reality and to give their people hope. And then it gets passed on and it gets evolved, and someone else translates it and, you know, shifts names, even places, stories, but it's all the same concept. You have a problem, God has a solution. If you figure out how to get right with God, you're okay. He will protect you or save you or whatever, he'll rescue you. And we've simply inherited a system that has evolved a million times, over the centuries and over the millennia, it's gotten us to, Christianity in its various forms today. But all we're talking about is evolution. And it's funny how Christians many of them will be very opposed to evolution. And then you realize your religion is chock full of evolution, not human, not physical evolution, but the evolution of ideas. And you can, just like you can trace, people and animals backwards to see the family tree, so to speak, of life. You can go back and see the evolution of Christianity. Where did this thing come from? You can see it came straight out of Judaism, which came straight out of Egypt, which came straight out of Samaria, all this not straight out of, but, mixed back and forth. And the whole evolution at a certain point, and that's part of, I think, a lot of people's deconstruction, is to realize this doesn't sound divine. This just sounds like tribal people telling other tribal people.
Yeah.
And eventually it got to current day, but we're basically, like, we would have said, oh, those ancient Egyptians were pagan. They believed in Ra and, all these other gods from the Egyptian pantheon or the Greek pantheon. Like, they were the pagans. Like, no, you inherited a religion, or you're in a religion that inherited paganism. Your religion of Christianity is just as pagan in that sense. There's nothing different at all. I mean, I shudder when I think about how people can't see the phrase, eat his flesh and drink his blood, and not be like, what the hell am I doing?
How's that?
Like,
Right.
this is pure
Why
paganism.
am I committing pseudo-cannibalism?
And the circumcision, like, you really think God wants to cut off the end of a little boy's penis? Like, really?
I didn't, and it's really funny because like, did you know the foreskin story when you were like a kid in church?
Like with Abraham and Isaac, you mean?
Not what was it? Was like, I think it was like a king, and he paid somebody with like 40 foreskins. I think.
Oh yeah, David to Saul.
David
to get
to Saul. Like, I didn't
Saul's
hear
daughter.
that story until I was an atheist. Like, I started looking up all the weird Bible stories, and I was like, where was this? I'm like, I didn't learn this in Bible study. We were reading. I mean, like, we were reading things about, like, Ruth turning to salt because she, turned back because,
Lot's
she
wife.
doubted. Yeah, Lot's wife and stuff, like, stuff like that. We weren't hearing about like
Did you hear about the
for payment? That
Elisha?
type of stuff.
Remember the Elisha story? Did you hear that one of the 42 bears? I'm sorry, the 2 bears and the 42 children.
That's my favorite one, to point out how ridiculous God is. like you're God. Like, you can do anything, and you're like, somebody makes fun of a bald guy, and I kind of joke about this because my husband's bald. So I said, I'm like, if you ever get godlike powers, you can smite people if they make fun of you for being bald. And I go and stick bears on them. Like,
I'm always amazed.
It's just so weird. And I get it that, like, a good portion of believers just say this is metaphorical, like this doesn't happen. But there are people that really believe, like, God sent a bunch of she bears, like, because some kids made fun of a bald man. And I've heard some justifications for it. I'm like, dude, God's a dick. Because, and I'm like, and that guy should have a thicker skin because you're going to get made fun of. It's just the way it is. So, and I go, and you called on your God because you got mad. And God's like, I like him better than those kids. And we're going to stick a bunch of she bears on.
What's amazing to me too is how many people ignore that so much of it is astrotheology.
Yeah.
Meaning these people are truly taking stories from the stars. And when you look at Elisha's predecessor, Elijah, it says Elijah was taken up to heaven in this chariot of fire. So you have this picture of a chariot of fire, which is the sun. Then you have Elisha, who's described as bald, which is, picture of the moon. That's very, very common. The sun has hair and it has, the kind of the streaking of the sun rays or whatever. And then the moon is bald, and it follows right behind the sun.
Right.
But then, with the 2 bears, anybody familiar with the constellations would be like, 2 bears. That's Ursa Major and Ursa Minor. And then you're like, why does it say exactly 42 kids? Why not round down to 40 or something? Why not round up to 50? Well, Ursa Major and Ursa Minor have 42 star couplets in their constellation. Like, this is exactly, they're just telling star stories. And that, it's, people sometimes will acknowledge a little bit of that in the Old Testament, but they refuse to acknowledge it in the New. And it's right there too. It's like some of the Jesus stuff. One of the guys I love, Bill Darlison, he's a former Unitarian pastor in Dublin, but he wrote a couple of books, but one of them is called the Zodiac and the Gospel. And I think the other one's called The Celestial Journey of the Soul, but talking about how the Gospel of Mark is structured according to the signs of the Zodiac in the right order of the constellations. And you're like, this is crazy. You guys are just telling star stories.
That's
Come
so
on.
cool.
And it just,
I
this
love,
doesn't
but I love
sound
all
right.
that stuff. Like I love
Yeah, it's fascinating,
old
but it's not
ancient.
real.
It's not real. Like, like I love a good like Norse pagan story. Like I love that
Yeah,
stuff as my jams. But I also know that that's not real. But
yeah,
and I think that's great. Like we love stories. Like I say, like, Marvel and DC, these are the gods of our generation, these people that have, superhuman powers and they're heroes and they save people. I go, we're doing the same thing. We do it over and over and over again because we are hardwired for stories. It's just that no longer do we think that like I'm going to use Thor because he's, modern equivalent of a god that's also a superhero. We know that Thor's not real. We know that he doesn't control lightning and can do all this stuff, it we know those things aren't real anymore. And that's the thing that I find so interesting is that we're always telling stories. We're always trying to make sense of our place and what we're doing here and stuff like that. And I understand, like, because I went through this too, like when you start letting go of your belief, when you're like, I have no way to prove this. It was just a story that was told to me, it affected the way I thought about the world and myself and other people. Once you let that go, you then have to find something else. What is that thing? And because like I have a very existentialist, absurdist view of the world now. Like I choose my meaning now. It's not anything that's given to me, and that is terrifying because at the beginning of the process, because you're kind of like, well, for let's say, for myself, 40 years of having a belief in something, and like, and this all makes sense and blah blah blah. Like I had like a purpose and I knew what my purpose was. First it was like, be a good person for Jesus, and then I'll go to heaven. Then it was like I have karma to like fix, and I'm going to reincarnate and whatever woo belief I had at the time. Now I have to figure out, if I only have one life and I don't know what's going to happen afterwards, and good the major theory is like nothing is going to happen. What do I do now? And I think that's the harder part of the deconversion process, is what do I replace my faith with? Because if you don't have faith anymore and you're not working towards like, having an afterlife, you're not, like, and like if you're doing like charity work, for your church or whatever, it's like, can I still do that? Can I, like, well, I want to be helpful. Like you have to like question all this stuff, and what are you going to replace it with, and how do you bring meaning to your life? Like, do you become a nihilist? Which I don't think you should. Like, I'm not cool with nihilism, but if you want to, fine. Because it is kind of meaningless, but I'm an absurdist. I believe that I can choose my meaning, what I want to put into my life, and the things that I learn and want to share with the world. Like I work for, like, I do work with RFR. I'm an atheist activist. I'm also like a mom, and I'm a friend, and I have all these different roles, and that's how I bring meaning into my life. And sometimes it serves me for a little while, and then I say, you know what, I don't need this anymore, and you just toss it aside and you find new meaning. And I think that's the other process of the deconversion, is what does my life look like now that I'm out?
yeah.
And
And
how do I bring those emotions and the sense of purpose that people need?
it's amazing to me that there is that confusion of like, well, what do I live for then? And I think I do take more of a nihilistic perspective, but it's like, what do I live for then? But, or what's my hope? Maybe people might phrase it differently. What am I hoping for? But at the end of the day, the reality is you're free. Like you still won the lottery. You could have been going to your deathbed completely convinced that this ancient Stone Age, Bronze Age mythology was reality. And at least for whatever years, hopefully decades, we all have left in our lives, you at least have a fighting chance to figure out what's reality, hopefully through a lot more scientific and skeptical perspectives. But just to say, I think it's Dan Barker who did that book, kind of the opposite of the purpose driven life, the life driven purpose. Like,
Mhm.
I'm alive and I don't know, you know, what I should do with all the things that I used to believe, but I know I don't think they're real anymore. And I'm not sure what to replace it with yet, but I do know one thing. I have the power to craft the rest of my life without mythology as the dominating force. And just to say, I mean, like I grew up, for example, with this big motif of where whenever you go to a place, like say you go to a restaurant, you leave it better than you found it.
Mhm.
Meaning, you don't if you go and you're say you're just something like simple like McDonald's, and sprinkle some salt on your French fries, and whoops, there's salt on the table now. Well, you have a choice when you leave. You could kind of take your tray over, but leave your table full of the salt that's sprayed on it, or you could
Mhm.
clean it off so that when someone else comes, your table is clean. And that concept was in many contexts was kind of drilled into me in a good sense. I think that's one of the many things that I appreciated about my childhood was that this motif of leave it better than you found it was so prevalent. And I think
Mhm.
that applies to our lives. Like we're we're not going to see the world in the future when hopefully religion dies out. We don't get to live long enough to see the Star Trek era of our species, which is kind of sad. Be nice to be able to travel, interstellar and all that to
Right.
Mars. And but whatever the whatever the future looks like, we get to make a difference and to say, I think I can make a small difference to at least some people to leave this planet better than I found it. And at some point, we all know that people used to truly believe in Zeus and all these other Greek gods. They used to truly believe in Ra, and I'm sure there's some fringe group that still would do it. But by and large, most people don't pray to those gods anymore. I don't think most people pray to Zeus or Dionysius or all that. At some point, it died out, and something else took over. And at some point in the future, hopefully, Christianity's day will come where it will simply die out. There'll be some fringe groups here or there, but by and large, it will be seen as an old relic, just like worshiping Zeus does today.
Yeah.
And that's
I think
that's the
so
goal,
too.
is to give our future generations a fighting chance at skepticism, and it's a scientific perspective, and to finally say, like, look, we are free to define our future, not because we're fighting God, but because we've realized God's not there. He's never been there in the first place. And at least, we still will have shackles, in terms of our psychology and in terms of the physical limitations of our world. But
We
at
always
least
have bias.
yeah, we'll
We're
always have
always gonna
bias,
have it.
but at least the shackle of religion will slowly start to fade, and we'll have a little bit of a better fighting chance at a better future for our planet. I think that's worth fighting for.
I do too, because like it is one of those things and I think like especially in the evangelical movement, like with the banning of books and wanting the Bible taught, it's because they know it's happening. It's the death cries,
Yeah.
because the majority of the country is going no, no, like you cannot burn books, you can't reject people because they're queer or a person of color. You can't make Christianity like a we're not going to have a theocracy. It's not going to happen, and because they feel they're victimized. And again, I'm using the term loosely. Um, they are pushing back because the world that they want is ending. You know, and I understand it's scary and it's fear. Like I get it I have enough sympathy to go, yes, I understand you're scared, and it's a lot, and the world is changing really fast. And because that's one good thing about the internet, is one of the many good things is that information isn't held from people anymore, and the more information you have, the more access you have, because you can look up anything. I think I looked up the other, like last week, like something about how long like a certain breed of monkey lived, because I was me and my husband are having a conversation, and I can just do it. Like I have it in my phone, like do okay, and we didn't have that 25 years ago. When I was a kid, like the internet came to being when I was like 16, 17 years old.
Yeah.
And so I've had a good portion of my life with the internet in it. But my kids have had internet all their lives, you
Yep.
know, and it's just the way the world is. And the more people have access, and especially the world has become smaller because you can talk to someone very different from you living in another country and form relationships with people and stuff like that, and hear different perspectives and see a different way of living. And I get it, because if you are a traditionalist and you have that bigger amygdala that's screaming bad, 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 threat, bad, 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 because that's the way your brain evolved. I get it. I do. But at the same time, that is still not a reason to hold on to bad ideas. That is still not a reason to not progress. It's still not a reason, especially if you have like weird superstitious beliefs that I'm just like, yeah, no, I'm sorry, but your God does not exist as far as I know. And I'm like 99% sure he doesn't. That is not a reason. And even if he did exist, it's still not a reason, because he doesn't seem to care about us anyway. So
Yeah,
still not a reason.
exactly. And I think too, just to add a little different flair on that too, it's also, it's imperative if people want to believe something, and especially if they want to pass on their belief, know where that came from. If you still want to believe it after you find out, that's fine. It's, people are free to do what they want to do. But if you're, so to speak, I like to describe it as a table, where if you're telling someone, here's a table and I'm going to put some information, stacks of books, and if you read these books, this will tell you where this religion came from and how it got here, how we got to today. And I believe, as the religious person, that if you read these books and you understand the background, you will say to yourself, oh my goodness, this is truth upon truth. This is amazing. I will stake my claim and I will swing out into eternity on this truth. And so you have this table, and the person who's the listener says to the person who's the believer, who's trying to do the indoctrination, go ahead, put your books out. I want to read these books and see what you've got, or I want to see the claims. And instead of them filling the table up, they fill up like one little corner. And you're like, where's the other books? Where's the other information? Where's the rest? Why is the rest of the table why is it empty? And for example, what I mean by that is, when you look at works such as the work of the great Dr. Dennis MacDonald, who's done groundbreaking work on showing how the books of Homer's Iliad and Odyssey are woven into the Gospels over and over and over. How even Euripides' Bacchae with
I
Dionysius.
saw a lecture on that. I didn't see I haven't read the book, but I saw a lecture on that. It was really fascinating.
It is. It's amazing. And Euripides' Bacchae with Dionysius and all that. And then, Virgil's Aeneid, all these things, you realize the Pythagoreanism's woven in, a lot of Neoplatonism, a lot of the work from Plutarch, a lot of copies from Josephus, and endless copies from books such as First Enoch, Jubilees, Maccabees, and all that. At least, and you begin to fill up the table, and people are like, oh, I didn't realize that my religion was heavily influenced from the Maccabee period. I didn't realize it was copying from the book of Enoch well over 100 times. I thought I was reading Jesus saying something, and it's actually Enoch saying something.
Hold on, my camera fell.
Whoops.
Sorry.
Take your time.
I'll be right back.
That's Satan. He doesn't want us to be talking.
I know. That's right. It was the scene, and it was just not me fixing my curtains. It was the internet gods like, no, you can't talk about this.
But just if whatever we could go on and on about all the different things you need to study. But if you're going to truly tell people, I have the truth, and I think you should stake your life and eternity on this, for goodness sake, tell them where you got this truth from. Yeah. Tell them the full story. Don't, well, I know that it's from God. How do you know it's from God? Tell people there's not 4 gospels. There's like 60 gospels. There's not one book of Acts. There's at least 6 different books of Acts. Tell people the full story.
It was really funny because I hang a lot on like atheist forums on Discord and stuff, and and it was a theist that came into the Discord, and we were having a conversation, and I go, do you know how many gospels there are? And they're like, there's 4. I'm like, no. No. And I said, there's 60 gospels, and I sent them the link. I said, here, I go, this is from Wikipedia, but at the bottom, it lists a bunch of resources of where this information came from. And you can go to those links too, and you can read all this stuff. And they were like, no, this is wrong. They didn't want to believe it. And I said, because we were going about how the Bible, because of the Catholic Church, they changed things, they took out books, they did a lot of editing, because they were creating a religion,
Yeah.
and they needed a structure, and the theology that they were developing and mythology, they're like, well, this doesn't, well, no, we don't really like that, and we don't really like this isn't fitting into the structure that we want. We're creating a narrative that we want people to follow, and this might be a little bit confusing, even though the Bible is very, very confusing. If you read it, it just doesn't make any sense. But at the time, they were editing and fine-tuning and stuff like that, and they had political agendas that they wanted to do and all these different things. And when you do look at it that way, it makes sense that they would edit it, because the Bible's long enough it is, but if you have 60 other gospels, and even then they're all contradicting each other,
Yeah.
even on top of the 4 that we have that contradict each other.
You realize it's propaganda. They're
all
creating propaganda.
Yeah. So, it makes sense, but this person just did not want to accept the history because they weren't taught the history, and the thing is, though, as a Catholic, I learned that history. It was taught, because they're like, this is what they did, we're like, oh,
Cool.
but that's just the way that people have to learn to know the full. If you're only if I have a pie and I only give you one slice of the pie, and I tell you this is the only part of the pie that exists, and I'm keeping the rest of the pie, hiding it from you, you're not going to know that part of the pie exists. I just gave you a little slice and go, this is the only piece of pie you're going to get.
Yeah. And some Christians, I think, are truly oblivious to the other parts. But when you realize that a lot of Christians do know the other parts, you think you kind of are getting close to being a charlatan if you won't tell people the full story. And again, I know that's not everybody. Some people are just like, I have no idea what, I personally would have, if you had told me back when I was a Christian, the New Testament quotes the book of Enoch well over 100 times, I would have said, bullshit. There's no way it does. And that's absurd. But there are Christians I've discovered who did the homework. They found that, just people like Dr. Michael Heiser and other people, where they know that Enoch is woven all throughout the New Testament, and all they do is try to explain it away. But I'm like, at least there's a quasi sense of admitting there's more to this story. And I don't like how they try to explain it away and just kind of, it's like no matter what they do, they will always shift the story to, like, some people would say, well, that just means the book of Enoch should have been canonical. It should have been in the New Testament. And there are many church fathers said that as well. And the Ethiopian church has never lost Enoch. They've always had it, which is as a side note, you think God would have been clear to the church about which books he wanted. And the Ethiopian church has never, ever lost it. But most of us have lost it long ago. But it's like, come on, at least be honest with what's out there. Where did this thing come from? And then to also to be honest, I think, with the philosophical side, and say, when we as atheists tell people who are Christians, we're not comfortable defending a God of genocide. People will be like, well, God is holy. God has the right to do what he wants. Yeah, but I don't want to stand behind a God of genocide. He also commands not just genocide, but he commands child brides, or worse, where he says, kill everybody, moms, dads, little boys. But if there's a little girl, young girl who's a virgin, take her. As they're doing this, these child bride situations, you're just like, I can't defend that anymore. I don't want to. If that's your God, I would rather fight him than stand with him. And it offends me that a lot of Christians are like, you have no moral standing. I'm like, I am fighting against child brides and you're not. I'm fighting against genocide and you're not. And you think you have the moral high ground? There's just no way.
Yeah. And it's a lot of, and the fact that you have to justify it. Like, it's not just we're saying, going like, you're trying to justify slavery, or you're trying to justify genocide, or you're trying to justify any sort of misogyny or homophobia or whatever your book says.
Yeah, stoning.
And stoning. Like, are you stoning your neighbors on weekends because if they're working? Like, no, you're not. We don't do that in polite society. It's a bad thing. So why is why aren't you trying to defend that? You should be,
Yeah.
because if you really believe your book, like hardcore, then when your neighbor goes to work on Sunday instead of going to the Sabbath, you're supposed to stone him.
Yeah.
Why aren't you doing that? But
And
you're trying to justify slavery or any sort of, or like homophobia or whatever. It's like, no, you can't pick and choose, mofo. You can't.
yeah.
You
And
can't do
I
it
think
that way.
a lot of people too just need to admit, and this is one of the hardest things, but you got to admit you believe it because it was just what was passed down to you.
Yeah.
And you've got to admit too that you know that if you walk away from this religion that you're in, everyone's going to bite you hard and say you're the outcast, you're the person that's trying to ruffle everyone's feathers, you're trying to cause trouble, and you, the price you pay for leaving the societal construct of an organized religion, of this, kind of, it's just cemented into our society in different ways. If you're one of those people that's willing to stand up and say, no more, I'm done with this, they're going to attack you. They're going to basically see you as like a traitor. And so when you have that dynamic woven in, it's extremely hard to leave, and it's extremely easy to stay and play the part no matter what, whether you believe it a little bit or you really believe it fervently, or you're just playing a part. You're a casual Christian, as I might have called it, or a liberal Christian. But the price you pay for just standing up and saying, actually, none of this is real. This is all make believe. This is like a fairy tale. This is Santa Claus stuff. Thank you for the game, but I'm no longer playing. I'm walking away. I'm not saying that I don't like your God. I'm not saying I'm fighting God or angry at God. I'm saying your God isn't there. He's not there.
Yeah.
I'm not angry at him. He doesn't exist. I can't be angry at something that doesn't exist.
You can't hate something that doesn't exist. You can't.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fine. Like, I'm mad at the institution, but I'm not mad at God.
Right.
That's the difference, and I think that's really hard for people to grasp. And there's this therapist I watch on YouTube, and he does like a therapy channel, and he's a believer, but he says that, like, he was talking about, like, what do you do when someone leaves the church? It's like, are you going to, like, animosity is not, because you stay because you have good reasons. They left because they have good reasons.
Yes.
And you don't have the right to push people to come back. They have to do it on their own if they want to. And if they choose to stay out, but they're still the same person, they're still the kind, good person that you knew, then you don't get to make those choices. And he's a believer, and I really admired him for saying that, because people do have good reason. We had good reasons why we left.
Yeah.
And we let go of all that stuff. And I believe that there's some people that they think they have, like, I think I have good reasons for leaving religion. The people that are still in religion have good reasons, they think, to stay. The ones that are like in it to win it,
Yeah.
and the ones that are on the fence, they're questioning, they're going through that process. And I think what makes the thing is, though, is that I don't think I could fake it anymore.
Yeah.
I couldn't go into a church. Like, I can do the ritual because that is ingrained in there. Know my prayers. It's like hardwired, like somewhere in my there, that connection is never getting unplugged.
Right.
But I couldn't make myself believe in gods anymore. I couldn't make myself have that magical thinking, even though it might be a little bit more comforting, but even then, like, when I think about it now, like, living for eternity just sounds also really bad. So, like, if you really think about it, so if
Well,
I dissect it.
Can I piggyback too, to say that not just should they respect our willingness to leave, but I think there needs to be an acknowledgement too that we have very good reasons to be fighting religion. And I know
Oh,
some
yeah.
Christians would love to say, well, if you don't want to believe, fine, just don't believe and then go shut up. Like, there is
No.
something much bigger going on here, and it's called psychological child abuse. When you're telling kids, especially like in the Catholic Church, you have these icons. We don't have as much in the Protestant world, but you have a picture, a statue, whatever, of Christ on the cross, with the crown of thorns and the
Torture
the
device.
nails, torture device, and then you tell little Johnny, little Susie, hey, did you see that guy up there in exquisite torture, in so much pain? You know why he's there? Because of you. You put him there. You were the sinner. And you know what? If you were the only person who had been in the Garden of Eden and you'd bitten that fruit and you had caused sin to come in this world, Christ would have still had to die just for you, and he would have done that just for you. You put the nails in that man. You're the cause. You're wicked. You tell kids that, I have a problem, because now you're telling kids that they're inherently wicked, that they've inherited this, but they're also actively doing things to attack God. And when you tell someone, I mean, kids love to run to people. I think most of the kids I've seen, they love to run to people that are in pain and say, "How can I help you?" If their friend falls off the bike and scrapes the knee and starts screaming, they run to him. How, what can I do? I'll go get your mommy, whatever. They feel that pain, and when you say, "Do you see that man in the worst pain you could imagine on a cross, on a crucifix?" It's your fault. You did this. Oh my goodness, I got a problem with that. I will fight this thing tooth and nail till the day I die, because you can't tell kids that stuff. And then to tell them, by the way, if not only are you the cause of this whole problem, but if you don't receive him by faith, you get to burn in hell afterwards. You mix the shame and the guilt of sin and the afterlife punishment of eternal conscious torment in hell. You put those on a kid, and I'm going to fight you every which way I can. This is wrong to the kids, and they have no way to be skeptical if there's no one fighting for them. They have no way to fight back and say, "This doesn't sound right." They'll just take what you tell them, like Santa Claus. And they think, "Oh, I guess it is my fault. Yeah, I do bad things. I sometimes don't obey mom and daddy. I guess I'm a bad person. I guess I do deserve hell. I guess I do need Jesus's blood to be saved." They'll buy it. They'll buy it like crazy. And Christians are so good at knowing, if you get them by a certain age, you get kids when they're young.
By 8.
You got them. And then they hone that skill. They get those kids early.
Yeah, because and that was because I can remember the church that I said, like literally 2 blocks. This was when my kids were small. I think they were 8 and 6 years old. And my sister-in-law was like, "There's gonna be a trunk or treat at the church. Do you want to go?" And I was like, "Yeah, that'll be fun." And because she had 2 small kids at the time too, and we went. But so we did the trunk or treating, and me and my husband were not raising them with any religion. We were pagan at the time, and we still decided not to raise them within our faith. We were they should discover things on their own, and I was already kind of teaching them skepticism at the time anyway. But we went, and they had a presentation, and the pastor took a pumpkin and starts pulling the guts out and saying, "Do you know what this is? It's sin. All the gross parts are sin, and it's inside of you," and telling children this. And me and my husband looked at each other, told my sister-in-law, "No way," and we left. And my sister-in-law didn't understand. She got upset, and she didn't. And I'm like, I don't want my kids to think that there's something inherently wrong with them, that they're sinful. I don't want sin to be a part of their narrative of who they are, because everybody has good and bad inside of us. It's just the choices we make that determines your character, not that you're sinful or anything like that. It's just human beings, and
yeah.
And she was also raised Catholic. And she just couldn't get there. She just thought I was being insulting, and it's supposed to be a good time. And I'm like, this is my line, that if you start teaching my children really bad ideas, I'm going to push against those bad ideas, and I will not sit there and be polite and nice and a good girl. I'm not going to do that, because I'm a mama bear, and if I perceive a threat to my child, I'm pulling my kid away from the threat. Because it's abuse. It's abuse when you psychologically scar kids to think that there's something inherently that had nothing to do with them. Really, they didn't sit there and bang nails into the cross. That just because you exist, you exist as a human being, is inherently sinful, which is completely fucked up and wrong to teach anybody, especially a young child that cannot discern reality from fantasy. And because they're trusting, they trust adults to guide them and take care of them and to help them understand the world. And if you are telling them that you are inherently a bad person and you're at fault for this guy dying that you had nothing to do with, but you kind of did. like, how do you square that when you're like 5? You know?
Yeah, especially when your parents tell you the truth about a lot of other things. They'll tell you don't
Yeah.
touch the burner because it'll, when it's hot, it'll burn you.
Yeah.
And you know certain things are true, but yeah, when they mix it in, they have no way to tell it and tell the difference. And it's the the damage that we're talking about can last a lifetime, where you truly can't tell the difference between what's real and what's not for the next few decades potentially of your life. That's worth fighting for. And I'm so proud of groups like the Recovering from Religion, because
Mhm.
and other groups that you all partner with, but just to give people a fighting chance once you've left, to start a new life and to say, you were in it and you thought it was real. You did some really hard work and you were willing to admit the truth that this doesn't sound right. Not just even saying that is hard for a lot of people, but just to say this doesn't sound right anymore. Genocide and the conquest of Canaan, Joshua fought the battle of Jericho, the child bride stuff, the slavery, the stoning, the misogyny and patriarchy. It just doesn't sound right. Blood magic doesn't sound right. Scapegoating doesn't sound right. And when you say it enough, you realize, you take your breath away sometimes, but you realize my life is taking a different journey, different path. I've faced a watershed here, and I'm going to take the road less traveled, so to speak, in maybe my family and my circle of friends. But I think I'm done with this religion, and maybe I'm done with religion altogether. And just wanted to kind of steer us here
Yeah.
toward the conclusion of saying, can you kind of give a plug, maybe in your words, as all the good things that RFR is doing, and just beyond just this fundraiser that we talked about, but when you think of some of the hardest stories that have come across your radar, like what would the situation, maybe it started negatively, what would the situation be like for some people if they just had no one to talk to? And then what hole does that fill? What vacuum does it fill, knowing that Recovering from Religion is there for people that maybe they may even, if they talk to someone, they might even be in danger of going to prison or dying, but they're for sure in danger of shunning and ostracization and being treated badly. Like what would it be like without them, and what is it like now that they're here?
I wish that when I was going through my process that I had known about RFR, or an organization like them, because I over and over again we hear people say, like, like, I had like this one thing, like, either they call in like multiple times or they just call in once for the specific issue that they're just trying to work through. Nobody like, it's very rare people come walk away saying that it was negative. Like, everybody's getting something out of it, because I think, like, when you're going through the process, even if you're not leaving religion, but just saying, like, this whole idea of like slavery isn't squaring with me, and I need to talk about it. But if I talk about it with my pastor, I'm going to get excuses. If I talk about it with my family, they're, it's too emotional. I need to talk to someone that isn't going to place a judgment on me or try to convince me one way or the other. I just need to get it out. And maybe get some resources and kind of look at this, maybe a little bit more objectively. That's the kind of benefit that you get from calling into Recovering from Religion or chatting in, is because the agent doesn't know you from Adam, and doesn't know your circumstances, doesn't know your background, doesn't know, what faith you're in. Like, we allow people to share what they want to share. And we always say, like, are you comfortable, sharing me what faith you're in, and especially if you're in like a more extreme country, like if you're Muslim and you're living in Saudi Arabia, we do protections so people aren't tracked, because they could get killed for even questioning, and contacting us. So we have to have all these safety protocols, but we don't ask for names. If you want to share a name, great, you don't have to. um but I think a lot of people just need someone to say, it's okay that you're doubting. It's okay that this doesn't square with you. It's okay that you have a fear of hell, because if you have a belief that you have not squared, and and you're hitting a wall, you're like, I've tried, I'm like, I listen to the pastor, but I'm still like, I can't go around the wall, I'm still hitting it, like I keep having this roadblock, and the answer is not satisfying me anymore. It's okay to go to technically we're strangers, and say, hey, the slavery thing, I'm trying to square it, but I don't understand why an all-loving God would say that slavery is okay. And the agents or myself will help you do the work to process that out, because really everybody already has the answer inside of them. Like we all inherently know slavery is wrong, but religion is telling you something different. The idea is that ask the right questions, get you to really objectively look at this and separate what you want to be true to what is. And you already have the answer inside you. You just got to get there, and
Yeah.
have someone that's just going to listen to you and offer, offer resources, offer a new perspective of looking at it, and that's what we do, and that's why I wish when I had gone through my deconversion process that I had someone to say, like, you know what, I like this whole, like, I'm queer, and I don't really like the fact that the church isn't cool with me, but my family's really into this faith, and I don't know how to like square that, and what should I do, like if I had that at like 16 years old, I think that my life would have been a little bit different. Maybe I would have left a little earlier, or maybe let go of that magical thinking and be okay with myself earlier and stuff like that, maybe, I don't know, but I think that's
Sometimes
why
you
it's,
just need
and
a
also
sounding
too,
board too. Like
yeah, you just need,
you don't
that's all
even
you need.
necessarily need a long-term counselor for the next 6 months.
No,
You just need
and the
someone to
majority of
s
the
to talk it
people,
out.
the majority of the people that come to us don't. They like, sometimes we will refer them to the Secular Therapy Project, or we ask them if they need therapy, especially if they're dealing with a lot of like when they're describing to us that it's a lot of conflict and causing distress. But for the most part, it's just like, you know what, they'll start, they'll mistake, like, patterns as like God talking to them, and we have to, but they're kind of doubting it, so we kind of like walk them through, like, does this make sense? Like, sometimes yes, I'll agree that sometimes weird things happen, but statistically it's not that weird. But and that's the way you kind of explain them it to people, and usually they just have that roadblock that they're trying to work through. And I will tell people, if you are just at the beginning, like 2 days ago you were like, I'm not really digging on this, or you've been 20 years out and you still have questions, because the thing is, though, is that you can be out for a very long time, but those neurons are still in there, and they'll crop up every so often, and they'll make you go, like, if you think you're invisible, Sky Daddy's still up here, like you'll get feelings of guilt, or you'll have triggers, or all these different things. Or I had a conversation with someone, and I thought I had this atheist thing figured out, but they were talking about, how, blah blah blah, and it got me thinking, like, maybe I'm wrong, but I don't want to be. And that happens too. They're trying, most of the stuff we get, a lot of the stuff we do is like sexual issues, like letting go of like sex guilt, and like, getting over like the guilt of like watching porn, or being attracted to someone of the same gender, or like, how do I communicate with my spouse better about sex, or and like, I want to try new things, but like, my church told me it was bad, but like, how do I navigate that, get let go of that, because that's a lot of it too. A lot of it is just like how religion has infected my daily life, and how do I let go of the things that religion has infected,
Yeah.
in my life, how to get rid of, let go of the religion part.
And you mentioned
That's basic.
triggers.
Yeah.
For a lot of people, that those triggers, you want to heal from them, but they don't really end, because the people that you love and live with and see are, even if you're not in a Christian ministry, at work, but just maybe your spouse and your parents and your best friends, and all that, they're all going to keep triggering you. And for a lot of us, like, sometimes you just need people to talk to, just to kind of ground you. You know that this is a garbagey worldview to be believing in this mythology, and you're out, and there's no way they could get you back in if they tried. Like, you could just untangle it and unravel it in any which way, but it still triggers you when you hear people doing this stuff, especially when there's kids involved, where you're like for example, in my situation, my kids are in church right now, and it's like
Hmm.
it pains me because loved ones take them to church, loved ones believe in it, and you have to begin to deal with the triggers that you're not healing from them, as in a trigger that happened a year ago or 5 years ago. You're talking about a trigger that happened 20 minutes ago,
Yep.
and these things are so painful. And the idea too of being able to protect kids' minds is such a big deal. But going back to the organization, I want to keep it focused on that. The biggest thing too is just they're not there to get you out of religion. If you don't want to be leaving your religion, they're not going to say, well, you really need to leave. That's your problem, is you're still a Christian. They're not pushing anybody into or out of religion. They're
Yeah.
just there to talk about it, and they're not going to proselytize either way. But they do understand that a lot of the people who call are in a process of deconstruction or deconversion, and some of them are leaving, and they're just going to say, how can I help? How can I hold your hand through this process? I know it's painful.
Exactly.
I know it's confusing. What can we do to be a friend to you through this process? Because a lot of people too, in the bigger context of individuals' lives, if your whole community has been a church, then chances are very high you have no other community. The idea of getting plugged into an atheist community is like, where would I even get started?
Right.
And how do I avoid the creeps, and how do I avoid this and that, and how do I avoid I don't want to go into, maybe someone's like, I'm not trying to be a pagan, I'm not trying to be a Satanist, I think I'm not a Christian anymore. Whatever you're trying to go for or avoid, or whatever balance you're looking for, the reality is you don't have any community yet. And so you are truly alone. And some people are very, very fortunate to have a spouse or a loved one deconvert at a similar time. And I've seen some really cool stories about that, and it's awesome. Some of us, that's not at all what happens, and you're kind of left alone. And I love how RFR is just saying, we're going to be here for you. We're going to partner with you in whatever way we can. And if you don't want to call but once every 6 months, call us when you need us. We're here for you. And also, just to point out, there, for a lot of people, I'm sure there's even times of day which are difficult for people to call, where like you can't call right in front of maybe your spouse or
Hmm.
parents. They're available where you can literally like
24/7.
put in a
You can
request.
schedule a call.
Yeah, they'll
You can
call you at
schedule one.
3 a.m. because someone in Australia will be there or whatever. It's like
Yeah.
they will take care of you, and they'll meet you where you're at.
Yeah, like I said, like you can schedule a call or chat, and angel won't contact you. If you well, we're on your schedule. And if you cannot get an agent, because sometimes that does happen, they will call you back if you allow it. They'll find a way, they'll chat in or check in if you say it's okay. So,
Yeah. Well,
that, and that's the thing about it too, is that, you know, we this is not an easy process. And I think, like, I'm gonna use my husband, he's pagan, but he's more of like a nature, like doesn't believe in the supernatural, but like has, like, some like Taoist, pagan, Darwinian. It's a hodgepodge, but he has never grown up with religion at all. He does not understand what the deconversion process is. He thinks that, like, when we're watching religious content, because that's a lot of what I consume, he's like people actually believe this bullshit. And I'm like, yes, Todd, I believe this bullshit too. I did.
yeah,
And
literally.
yeah, but now he gets it. Like, he can't get it, like, unless you've done the work. As I've been explaining things to him, he's like, oh yeah, that makes sense. What indoctrination does and stuff like that, because it is a whole psychological thing.
Yeah.
And I think, but the thing is, though, is that if you're not given a tool to do the process, you're still gonna be stuck in the cycle. And that's RFR just gives you a tool. It's just saying, hey, let's look at this. Let's look at your fear of hell. Why is that there? What are your concerns? Well, do you know where hell came from? Where the concept of it came from? And if they're like, no, you offer them a resource on the history of hell and other religions. Um, Asking them, like, does that make sense? Isn't all, like, like, even using, like, would you eternally punish your child, for some arbitrary, like, they lied, they lied about stealing cookies, and would you punish your child for like 3 months for stealing a couple cookies? No, that's insane. Like, you wouldn't do that. You would do like a mild punishment. You'd be like, okay, don't steal cookies, you don't get any dessert, for the next few days after dinner, and that's it. That's how you teach.
Yeah. And especially not,
We are reasonable.
and especially not torture. Like you think
Yeah,
about
like torture.
burning a child, like
Yeah.
and it's amazing to me that Christians can't see that difference too, where it's like God is a good father who will burn his own children. It's like there's just, you can't put these concepts together.
Right. And that's the thing about like having the tool,
Yeah.
and that's all we're doing at Recovering from Religion. We're trying to give people community, which is something I think a lot of people really need, and especially over the pandemic. Like I'm sure a
Yeah.
lot of people it's really interesting though. Like, because you're not going to church all the time, you're not getting the bullshit spoon fed to you, like those. I have a feeling that there was, because we saw an uptick a little bit too, during the pandemic, of people like starting to question, like going like, what, I'm not getting fed the bullshit, and they're like getting new information that's coming to them, and they're actually starting to explore and go, and maybe I'm not right about this. Maybe I should look at new things of looking at things. Maybe that'd be
Yeah.
good.
I'm
And
not going to church and things are going just fine.
yeah, exactly. So I think that too, because
Yeah.
like everybody, I think like for most people that are open to skepticism, they'll have like watershed moments, and they just need someone to hold their hand through it, and like you can call once, you can call as many times as you want, like even with the same issue, like yourself, because I don't think it's, sometimes things are really easy. Like the thing about like 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 I had no issue with slavery. I was just like, it's bad, it's wrong, any way you look at it, it's wrong, fine. But magical thinking, putting connections together that putting patterns together that aren't there, that took a while to work through, but I
Yeah.
didn't have like Recovering from Religion to kind of help me through the process. But the people that do know about us, they will contact us, and if they seem like they'll be a good fit for the online community, and we invite them to the online community. We have our RFRX podcast every Monday night, and we have different experts on, or people that talk about mental health, talk about purity culture, talk about the Amish, and also how the intersectionality between religion and state works, and how all these different things that people can get resources on, how their specific thing that they're working through. We have something that will help you,
Mm.
you know and
That's awesome.
I think that's why I got involved with this organization, and the work that we do is so good, because we all need each other. We are social beings, and we need to support and take care of one another.
Yeah.
And when you feel like you're the only person in the pew that's going, this doesn't make any sense anymore, but I can't say anything because my family's involved with this, my spouse, and maybe your income, like you got a job through one of your fellow parishioners, gave you a job, and they're your boss, and all these different things, or you're on the other side of the pulpit. That's why the Clergy Project exists. When you're on the other side and you don't believe the stuff that you're preaching, what do you do? And you need someone to help you along the way. And that's the
Mm.
things and the people that we RFR and the people that we partner with, the other organizations, to get people the support and care that they need.
Yeah.
I
Well,
mean, like,
could,
again, we are all volunteer based. None of us is making any money. We all do it because we're passionate, and we care about it. And I am going to plug the fundraiser one more time.
yeah, I was going to say, could
Please.
you wrap us up by telling us what that's all about and what
Yes.
people can expect if
So
they tune in?
So Ethan Michael, your friendly neighborhood atheist, again this year, he, for his 1-year anniversary last year for becoming an atheist YouTuber, he decided for his 1-year anniversary to do a fundraiser. He's doing it again this year for his 2nd year, which is wonderful of him. 100% of the donations will go to RFR. It goes to all the programs that I mentioned. And if you also like, if you can donate now. You don't have to wait till February 19th, but the live stream will be February 19th, 6 to 10 p.m. And you'll see Dr. Del Rey, our founder, Seth Andrews is going to be on the show, Kenneth Leonard, Shannon Q, a bunch of active people within the atheist community are going to be on the program, not only talking about recovering from religion, but atheist activism, different topics and things like that. So please check it out if you can. It will be up on his channel afterwards if you missed the live stream, but you can donate now. Which would be great. Our goal is $10,000. We exceeded our goal last year, so we're trying to do it again. That would be really wonderful. And it doesn't matter if you got $1 that you can donate, everything is appreciated. Also too, we are always looking for volunteers. So if everything that we talked about tonight, the deconversion process, working through religion, the problems with religion, magical thinking, and you see the work, you're familiar with recovering from religion, or you check us out and you want to give your time, we are always looking for volunteers, and you don't have to be an agent. We will find you a home. I started off as an agent. Now I'm an ambassador and a virtual support group leader. I do a bunch of other things too. But we'll find you a home. If you're good at editing videos, we'll give you a job doing that. You're good on tech stuff with the internet and working on platforms, we'll give you a job doing that. We will find you a home. So if you are interested in getting involved with us, please sign up for that. But again, right now we're really trying to push this fundraiser, get the word out about it. And I thank you, Tim, for having me on. And this was a really great conversation. The time went by really fast, even though we've been talking for 2 hours. So that's great. And all the work that you do, with this platform and getting the message out that it's okay to deconvert and you're going to be okay on the other side. It's going to be okay. And I think that's the message that we have to get out, that it's going to be okay. And you're going to be happy and healthy.
Yeah.
Even after you leave religion, you'll be fine.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I appreciate the plug here for the fundraiser, and I'll have some links beneath our video for people to go, look at the fundraiser. Whether if you happen to see it before it happens, join it live. If you happen to see this video after the event and you didn't catch it live, go watch the video that happened. But you can still support them at any point, and if you need to call them, certainly, again, the links beneath the video here. Call them and check them out. They love to help. They simply love to help. And I thank you for your support of my work too. I love what I'm about with Harmonic Atheist. I've got a couple different venues I'm trying to kind of go down different paths. One of them is what I've been doing mostly so far, which is just asking normal people. You don't have to be a PhD. You don't have to be someone who's been on Oprah. Just someone who's a normal person who has a story to tell, and just to tell people your story is powerful. And I like to think about it too, where sometimes people who talk a lot on, whether they're public speakers or they're on YouTube all the time, you get more used to telling your story. And I think some of us in our arrogance, maybe we think, oh, my story is the one that's going to, radically change everybody. My story is the one that's so different. But people listen to different voices and different tones and different stories. When you hear a homeschooling mother of 5 deconverted, that's going to hit certain people differently. When you hear someone that's gay that deconverted, it's going to hit you differently. When you hear someone that's Catholic, JW, Mormon, myself more Baptistic and Calvinistic, when you hear those different stories, certain people are going to hit certain people different ways. And I love trying to find the little, kind of like the diamond in the rough, as they would say. I think that there's certain people where their stories are going to hit certain people just where they need to be. So those people that are telling their stories, where maybe they might think, my story's not that special, to someone else who's maybe been down a similar journey of you, because a homeschooling mother of 5 is very different from some other stories. But right. When you as a homeschooling mother of 5 are talking to another homeschooling mother who's also thinking of deconverting, you're talking to each other now. Like I can't necessarily send the message, but 2 homeschooling moms can, and vice versa with all these different stories. And I love being able to tell people your story is actually powerful. And even if you think your story is boring, it's not, I guarantee you. And I love how I've had some people tell me, you don't understand I'm kind of boring. And we'll talk for 2 hours. And at the end of it, when it's done, we're done recording, they'll say, you know what? We have just scratched the surface. I've got so much more I could talk about. I'm like, I know you can. You've got more to your story, because there's layers. It's like an onion. There's layers here. And there's power in your story. So tell it if you can, if you're free to. If some people, it's not the right time yet, but when the time is right and you're safe, share your story, because people need to hear what the journey's like, and you may be inspiring people who are on the fence to say, yeah, you're making some really good points. I need to figure this thing out. I can't wait any longer. And to
And I think
acknowledge the danger and the I was gonna say the negativity that's going to happen. Like when we were Christians, we talk about generational curses. Oh, if you don't break alcoholism, you'll be an alcoholic, your kids will be alcoholic. Break the generational curses. Or if it's anger or whatever, pornography, well, it's like we know that that's not real, but in the same sense, break the generational curse of mythology as a worldview. It's
mhm.
not real, and you have the power to stop all this horrible stuff that's happening in our world purely because of religion.
Yeah, I call it like a wicked vow. You've
Yes.
made the decision to, like, I'm a bad person because Jesus died for my sin. That's a vow that you are made, that's your perception of yourself, and you have to do the work. Like, you have to appease, your sky daddy, to make sure that you're not eternally punished because you did something wrong, but you're not quite sure what it is. But you have to do it, and when you tell yourself I am this, that is like, even if you just say that I am a liar, or that's a wicked vow, you are telling that I am predisposed to this behavior,
Yeah.
and it makes me bad, and you can do that with anything, but that's the thing that religion does. It makes you say these wicked vows to yourself, and it's a perception that is wrong,
Yeah.
and I think that when when I tell my story, or I hear other people's stories, even if they're not really relatable, like I'm never been a Jehovah's Witness. That's been shunned by my family, which I think is one of the most horrible things you could ever do, which is something I cannot understand, of ever rejecting any of my family for any reason. Somebody, I was watching Lisa Remini and the Aftermath, and somebody said, who, even when your child has murdered somebody, who shows up? Mom and dad, or at least mom. You have a murderer in your family, and mom is going to be in that courtroom. Jehovah Witnesses or Scientologists or Amish, they don't show up. And all you did was say, I don't buy this anymore. You didn't hurt anybody. You're just saying, I don't buy this. I can't relate to that. I can't relate to the shunning, but what I can relate to is that you are in pain, and it must be painful. And in that process, even if you tell that story and you can't directly, but you can ask yourself, like, what are the things that my religion does that I find shameful?
Yeah.
What are the lessons that my religion is teaching that makes another person feel less than a human being?
Mm. Well said.
that
Well said.
that is the power in in our stories of our processes of leaving. Because if an institution is saying you have to do this to be accepted, you have to follow these really strict rules that were laid down for some arbitrary reason, and you're trying to fit yourself into that box, and if you don't fit into the box, everybody's going to reject you, or it's going to cause problems, then don't go in the box. Try not to. And like, you don't need to be in that damn box, because it is a bad box. It's a very, very
Yeah,
bad box.
it is. It is. What I just appreciate the fact that you all are, just amazing partners with the community of helping people to escape, and also once they have escaped, to help people get grounded, because there's a lot of
Mhm.
good stuff that can happen as you begin to heal and figure out, now that you know what life isn't about, figuring out what it is about, and what you can do with your life now that you're not, like you said, trying to spend your time and energy and focus on your sky daddy, on this make believe heaven, but you're instead trying to just live your best life now and leave this place better than you found it. So thank you for helping people to escape and to get grounded, because it's just, this is the best life. I remember as a Christian thinking the best life is either to be a pastor and of course to expound the word of God to the congregation, or to be a missionary and to share the gospel with the lost, those who are dying without
Yeah.
the hope of eternity with Christ, and to be on the other side of it. Um, this is the best life, is to help people escape
Exactly.
this prison. And I love it. I love it. And I hope I can do more. I appreciate what you all are doing. Thank you for what you do with your volunteer work. This is great. And thank you to the Recovering from Religion group. Thank you to Dr. Darrell Ray and all the other people. I could list up a bunch of names, but thank you all. Gail Jordan, I know the D'Souza's in Australia doing great
Oh
work.
yeah.
I'm sure there's many, many, many people I don't know, but yet hopefully
I
I'll
work
get
with
to
wonderful people. I
interview a
do.
lot more of them. But thank you all for what you're doing. Thank you for helping people to escape. This is the best life. And do you have any final thoughts before we wrap up?
Um, Again, please donate.
Yes.
I am not afraid to shill for money. Please donate. But also too, the more important message is that if you need us, please seek us out. Like, go to recoveringfromreligion.org. There is an agent willing to listen to you, to chat with you, to help you, because you don't have to go through this alone. You don't. And if you need there's a community out there that cares about you, that wants you to be okay. We've never met you, but we want you to be okay. So please reach out. We have the resources, we have the things that will help you make this process a little easier.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah, to remind people too, you're not crazy.
No, you're not.
You're choosing some very healthy things. So keep choosing the healthy things. Leave the toxicity behind. It will be weird for a while. It will be a journey. It will be a rocky journey. But when you get on the other side of it, life is much better.
Life is so
I
much sweeter.
guarantee it. Yeah. Well, we've been speaking with Helen Greene. Helen, thank you so much for what you do, for your story, for recovering from religion, and we hope that you all just can continue to grow, and hopefully that as more and more people escape, the need for recovering from religion will also grow as well, because it seems like from what I can tell, the church's days are numbered, and people are getting wise to the issues, to the mythology, all that, and I would love to see. Obviously, I don't want you all so busy that you can't have a work-life balance, but I would love to see just the dynamic of recovering from religion being more necessary, because more and more people are finally leaving, and we're going to leave this planet better than we found it. We really are. We're going to leave it better than we found it.
We want the Star Trek future.
Yep,
That's what we got to do.
Exactly. Well, thank you so much, Helen. Very good to meet you. Hope to speak again with you sometime.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, Tim. I appreciate it.
Thank you.